Episode 10 of My Perfect Stranger begins with Yoon Young turning a corner and offering her hand to Hee Se-yeob. Blood-stained and a mess, Hee Se-yeob refuses to go to the hospital until his Young comes out. Yoon Young realizes that this is why his leg is such a mess and has never been fixed in the present timeline. Reporters come racing to the motel, right off the back of Hae-jun's tip-off. In fact, he gives Yoo Se-yeob his watch and tells him he needs to survive for 15 minutes before the reporters arrive. And thankfully, he manages to do just that. Yoo Se-yeob and Hee Se-yeob are still alive, and even better, the latter heads off to get his leg fixed up at the hospital. As fights break out in the police department over Hee Se-yeob and Baek's connection. Principal Yoon shows up and reprimands them all, angry and livid that they're fighting amongst themselves while blood is being shed in town. Hae-jun sets to work on a different path, bringing in Yoon Yun-woo to fix up their time travel car. While he's hard at work, Yoon Young and Hae-jun discuss their current situation, believing they have to try and finish everything up in this timeline before they can return. The last victim in 1987 was Kim Hae-kyung, the student who had ties to Mi-suk. Outside the cafe that night, Hae-kyung talks to Mi-suk and questions her ties to Hee Se-yeob and her brother. Apparently she's going to go through with framing her brother while also claiming to have ties with Hee Se-yeob, glad that he hasn't blabbed about her trying to kiss him. Hae-kyung, though, has issues at home that are closely linked to kimchi soup. After a fight in the restaurant turns ugly between two parents, Hae-kyung returns and finds the soup there, telling her mom that she'll only accept seaweed soup from now on, otherwise, she'll never come home. This is a pivotal time in the case, and Hae-jun and Yoon Young are more determined than ever to try and save her before she meets a horrible fate. At school the next day, a big fight breaks out. Hae-kyung ends up in a fistfight with one of the students, who basically calls her mom weak and not able to live without a man. When the homeroom teacher shows up, he ends up slapping her in the face. Heading home, she finds kimchi soup and decides to write a letter and run away. Thankfully, Hae-jun is there to stop her. After reading her letter, he decides to take her out and head off for a trip together. This one-day field trip sees the pair visit a 300-year-old tree that's still standing. This may have had to withstand many floods and droughts over time, which is reminiscent of Hae-kyung's mom, who stood for years on end trying to find some sort of news about her daughter, whom we know has been killed. He relays the heartbreaking story of what happened to her mother in the future, and she tentatively replies that she was only going to go missing for a little while. It seems to do the trick. And her mother ends up making her seaweed soup after all. She did initially make kimchi soup too, but her boyfriend is not going to show up anymore. She goes on to tell her that the homeroom teacher slapped her because she was badmouthing her mom. Meanwhile, Yoon Young takes Sun-ae off to the hospital to see Hee Se-yeob. He holds her hand and tells her she's done nothing wrong. As she sobs into his arms, Yoon Young watches from the doorway, and she's overcome with emotion. She's starting to understand why Hee Se-yeob was so precious to her, and that comes from the fact that he's been her pillar the whole time. Back home, Hae-jun speaks to Yun-woo, who's still fixing up the car. However, he overruns his date to see Our Happy Youthful Days, which is apparently playing at the cinema. This is when Hae-jun's parents first started dating, and out of curiosity, he shows up. Only the girl he happens to be dating is wearing a pink ribbon in her hair. When she gave birth to Hae-jun, she skipped town and never saw him again. But who could this girl be? It's certainly one of 4 people, and then we see it. Both Mi-suk and the waitress, Chung-ae, head out of the theater wearing the ribbon. Which one is his mother?